I've come to London, the economic heart of the country, for the latest instalment in our UK AEA Securing Value interview series. In a moment, I'll be heading over to Embankment to speak to energy policy specialist Adam Bell of Stonehaven, an international strategic consultancy, about fusion's contribution to the UK economy. How can fusion contribute to the UK economy? How can it secure value for the UK economy, particularly in the short term?
So in the short term, the way to think about fusion is much like the Apollo program. When you're designing an incredibly complicated bit of engineering, along the way you'll discover new and novel things that you can use in different sorts of spaces, in ways which you might not understand yet. And for fusion, the advantages are significant. One of my favorite examples, I'm going to plug a few out of the air, is when you're building, so like a tokamak or a magnetic confinement fusion reactor. In order to contain the plasma, you need immensely powerful magnets, which will probably involve some form of superconduction. Those currently don't exist. You have to invent them and find out ways to produce them at pace and in a way which doesn't involve too much power. And if you can do that, then all of a sudden maglev trains, so trains that levitate along the ground, there's already exist in place in Japan, are much cheaper, and you can put them everywhere. So HS2 was an excellent starting point, but HS3 might fly, thanks to the work that's happening in fusion. Elsewhere, there's lots of other inventions that are falling out of this too. So the walls of a fusion reactor, especially a magnetic confinement fusion reactor, have to withstand the bombardment of billions of neutrons every single second. And quite frankly, for most conventional materials, that will cause them to degrade very, very quickly. You can't just put a steel or concrete wall around a fusion reactor vessel. It has to be a bespoke and novel material, and you have to invent that. And if you invent a material that can withstand neutron bombardment, it will have other properties that might be relevant to lots of other uses as well, which we will discover in time. And on the other side of the fusion debate, on the inertial confinement side, where you're firing lasers or using metal rods to poke things until they fuse, there are lots of other things that fall out of that too. I think one of the most interesting is around the role of high-impact testing of materials. So if you are essentially firing a metal rod at a very small target in order to impel fusion, you have to do so by concentrating energy, kinetic energy, at a very, very small point. And firing a projectile that could be going at tens of kilometers per second. The other environment in which that happens is in space. Entire chunks of paint from old satellites can crash into your satellite and cause significant damage. Being able to test your satellite in those sorts of conditions on Earth is incredibly valuable to NASA and to anyone involved in the space race. That's something that we need to do in the short run. But it's also relevant for lots of other bits of infrastructure, so ballistic armor for other sorts of defense assets, other sorts of high pressure environments. There's lots of value to be gained. So in the short run, all those kind of innovations, almost kind of exciting side projects that are coming out of fusion could deliver a lot of value. I think the challenge to government is finding ways of capturing that value and building a supply chain up around these spin-off benefits.
That's fascinating. So many different ways that fusion can power UK prosperity in the short term and, of course, in the longer term as well. So many adjacent sectors that could be tapped into. How does fusion then position itself, or how is it positioned in relation to the broader policy landscape? Think of energy policy, but also technology and investment, for example.
So it's a complex relationship because fusion currently is an energy play, and in certain circumstances, of course, a defense play as well. That means that it's currently thought of in one particular way. It's thought of basically as the equivalent to fission power. So existing fission nuclear power plants, the assumption is you'll build a fusion power plant in somewhere like Wilfer or somewhere like Moorside, because that's where we built nuclear power plants before. But fusion, the different sorts of fusion especially, are quite different. They play a very, very different role within our energy mix. Fusion on the kind of magnetic confinement side, the side where you confine vast amounts of plasma in order to produce heat and ultimately raise steam for power generation, they're going to be very, very big facilities, and they'll be relatively centralized. They'll look a lot like Sizewell C and Hinkley B, so our planned fission power plants. Inertial confinement fusion can be smaller, and it can use essentially fuel to drive itself rather than having a single plasma that you have to top up regularly, which means to a degree it's easier to switch on and off. You have both sides of the energy system there. You have magnetic confinement providing constant power, and inertial confinement providing power that you can turn up and turn down. And in the future, where you build lots of wind and solar, you'll need both base load from magnetic confinement, and you'll need that flexible generation from inertial confinement. Both technologies have a role in the longer run. Their cost profiles are quite different as well. For magnetic confinement, obviously you have to replace the walls every so often, but for inertial confinement, the cost is often the fuel and small amounts of lithium to keep a reactor going, and that means that you'll run it when you need it. And for the UK, given that we can take advantage of solar in summer, you'll probably find ourselves firing up our star-making factories in the winter in order to help power the country through the coldest days. Once of course, we've got all this down.
So some really, really interesting considerations there about broader energy policy and other policy areas. But if I could take us back a little bit and sort of look at the broader UK economy, looking at the broader UK economy's needs over the next few years, what would you say those needs are, and what can the UK economy benefit most from in the short term?
So there are a number of missing bits of the UK for the UK economy right now, with the manufacturing and heavy industry and energy-intensive side that we will need to tackle. Almost in the short run, you'll need to find ways of generating high-grade heat for particular sorts of industry. So this is heat that could be anything from 500 C to 1,000 C, depending on the process. It is hard to do that using electricity alone. You can't really electrify a blast furnace. But what you can do is take heat from sources like fusion in order to drive high-intensity industry, the way in which it is much harder to do, again, just with electricity. The government is looking at fission for this right now. I think you probably have some success with advanced gas-cooled reactors. But there's a really interesting question around whether all that is happening too late. If we do get fusion in the mid-2030s, when you'd be looking at building high-temperature fission reactors anyway, we might just jump straight to fusion rather than going for older style fission, which is very exciting. In the short run, we're also going to build up large numbers of data centers, at least in theory, depending on what one believes about the AI boom. And they're all tend to be quite energy intensive. They tend to be quite location sensitive because you need to build them where there's a cable, because of course they need very low latency in order to maximize their efficiency. You can't really put fission wherever you want, for very obvious reasons. What you can do though is put fusion wherever you want. The kind of downside risks of fusion are so minimal. You can locate fusion relatively close to urban areas, and therefore you can locate it relatively close to where data centers might want to go. Say, for example, Slough. If we end up having the world's first commercial fusion reactor next to Slough, I would not be entirely surprised, because that's where all the data centers want to go. So, despite what John Benjamin might say, Slough might have a glorious future.
Very interesting. And I suppose there are a number of areas that you've touched on already in your answers where fusion can have a huge impact in the relatively short term over the next few years, but really concentrating on this critical next period of 2, 3, 4 years ahead. Where can fusion make the most impact in economic terms? Which areas and which sectors? What's sort of top of the list?
So right now, we need to build out advanced manufacturing capabilities. The government has specified this in the industrial strategy. Fusion requires those sorts of capabilities. If you're going to build essentially high-capacity capacitors for the purposes of driving an inertial confinement fusion device, if you're going to build superconducting magnets at scale, if you're going to build novel materials, you need to start building those factories in the UK now. Right now, for a lot of the capabilities you might need for fusion, you probably have to go overseas because we haven't got the right sort of industrial base. But there is an opportunity, given how fast we are driving at fusion, to capture more of the supply chain here. That is where government needs to concentrate its efforts. There's only so much government can do to accelerate the science, but it can absolutely accelerate the industrial base necessary to get fusion going.
So building from that answer, my final question is, how does the UK stay ahead in fusion then with so much competition around the world? And how does the UK, to quote something you wrote recently, become the easiest place in the world to build a fusion machine?
So this is incredibly important. Right now, we are in a fusion race between both us, the US, and China and other players too. China has targeted the mid-2030s for their first reactor. We need to at least match that ambition if we're going to stay in the game. And what that means is a couple of things. First of all, we do need to have some friendly competition between our technology categories. We can't just put all of our eggs in one basket. We need to be backing both magnetic confinement fusion and inertial confinement fusion plays. But what we also need to do is look at the regulatory environment around it. You can't have the same sort of onerous regime as you see in the fission side. Well, fusion is simply safer, but that regime has effectively prevented the development of private nuclear capability in the UK for many, many years. Having that applied to fusion, the sort of regime the ONR applies, would be a disaster. You know what I mean? We wouldn't probably build fusion here ever. What we need to do instead is have as light a touch regime as possible. That means reforming planning to allow people to build fusion power plants in a way which doesn't rely on the same sort of requirements as levered or traditional fission. It means ensuring that they can connect to the grid rapidly, and it means ensuring that the government explains what it's doing with respect to fusion. One of the biggest risks facing the sector is that if they have to go to the planning system at all, they'll face a backlash from the public who has no idea what fusion is, but that sounds a little bit like fission. And we need to avoid that. The government needs to tell people what's happening, needs to ease the regulatory pathway so that there's only the lightest possible touch of scrutiny upon the novel projects, and it needs to push things through planning as quickly as it possibly can. If we do all those things, if we make it easy to build, and if we build the supply chain around it, so that if you're building a fusion plant in the UK, you can buy everything here, then I think we have a chance to win.
Brilliant. Well, thank you so much, Adam Bell, for your fascinating insights today on fusion energy and securing value for the UK economy. And thanks once again for inviting us here to your offices in London.
It was a pleasure, and best of luck to UKAE in what's trying to achieve.